And I'll never forget the day at track practice, and the kids didn't love the workout. My wife is maybe one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around. The woman can coach, man. And so we're sitting there, my wife and I co-coached the team at St. Michael's Catholic here in Austin, and they were whining about the workout. We don't like this workout. This workout isn't fun. And so we don't like the workout. It's not fun. My wife looked at everybody. Her name's Anjali. She has a name. Anjali looked at him and she says, fun. She said, fun? To be honest with you, I'm not real concerned. My workouts are not designed for your enjoyment. You know what fun is? You know what fun is? Fun is prevailing. Fun is winning.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the hour, the man I've been looking forward to all day, Mr. Jeff Cunningham. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
You've seen how many iterations of a BPN podcast studio over the years? It's 2, 3?
Well, yeah, 3. I've
Okay.
seen 3 iterations of BPN Podcast Studio. Yeah.
Crazy. And you told me you've been up since 3:45 a.m. this morning. How do we feel? Mental capacity going into this one?
Highly caffeinated.
Okay. How many milligrams of caffeine a day?
I don't really know. I had 3 cups of coffee this morning between 4 a.m. and 8. And then I've had, I want to say 3 or 2 Diet Cokes.
Okay.
Since 10 a.m.
What's more intense, the courtroom or a Wednesday morning at Yellow Jacket Stadium?
Oh, Wednesday morning at Yellow Jacket Stadium. Dealing with all those personalities.
What's the most exciting one, and which one keeps you the most on your toes?
You mean practicing law or coaching?
Practicing. When you show up Wednesday, what personality keeps you on your toes? Which one's the most exciting? Not to pick favorites.
Ammons.
Okay.
Never know what I'm going to get with that guy. Never know what I'm going to get with that guy.
Is it exciting when you have all these athletes, they all have their own unique goals, their own unique journeys, and everyone shows up Wednesday ready to work hard, different splits, sometimes different workouts. How exciting is that for you to be a part of?
It's really exciting and it's really challenging. But I got pretty good at it when I cut my teeth on coaching an entire high school team, where you would have everybody from a beginner, a young JV athlete, to an all-state, state champion, sort of national class runner. And so you would have to divide everybody into groups. Maybe one guy's goal was the Nike National Championships to peak, right? And then another young guy's goals or a young lady's goals might be just run as fast as they can at the district meet, and that might be where we predicted maybe the season could end. So you would have to sort of stagger your workouts. You would have to look at long run schedules and things. So I got fairly adept at dealing with a fairly large cohort of runners, and so sort of transitioning into post-collegiate running, been able to manage it pretty well. Also, the post-collegiate group has grown so much over the years.
Right.
You have to understand, in 2018, I had two runners, right? And so, you fold in one runner and then another 2 or 3. And so it sort of gradually builds so you're not sort of waylaid by going from 0 to 100.
Right.
So.
Answer me honestly. How do you do it? Like, genuinely, how do you be an excellent lawyer, excellent friend, family man, coach? Because from the outside, it's like you're adding more athletes. Bat City's growing. You've a guy who's run 209 now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You're clearly still a lawyer. You're up at 3:45 driving to Houston. Like, how do you do it? And how do you figure out, obviously, you want to grow. That's your mindset.
Yeah.
But with growth in a certain area, something else is going to have to give. How do you evaluate?
Yeah. I have to be better at managing my time on the side of, practicing law. I've got some efficiencies now that I didn't have in 2001 when I first started practicing. I've gotten to the point where I can dig through, a few thousand pieces of paper in maybe an hour, because I've actually memorized the shapes of medical records as far as the way they present on a piece of paper.
Wow.
And so I actually can go really fast or scroll on a screen. I recognize the shapes of the text without even having to read the document sometimes. But when it comes to the coaching, when you're dealing with people's dreams and you're dealing with people's goals and you are fired up about trying to help them reach them, and you're so excited and so flattered and so honored that they want you to be part of that journey with them, you feel like sometimes, even though I think my wife would argue this, I don't want to say I have a bottomless pit of energy, but it feeds into me. People's desires and hopes and dreams and satisfaction, and then watching people achieve things and be so incredibly, eternally both grateful and happy, it sort of feeds. It feeds. It's almost like water in a thirsty garden. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Would you ever give up being a lawyer to be a full-time coach and have greater capacity there?
Somebody who's connected with my clients and somebody who may work for my clients might be watching or listening to this podcast, so I will reserve comment in that respect.
Fair. Very fair. I like the political nature. I wasn't sure where you were going in the beginning, and then I caught your drift.
Listen, coaching is something I will be able to do the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. Or at least I hope to.
But the capacity might change either which way.
Lawyers retire.
Yeah.
I mean, lawyers typically, unless they have some level of insanity that's been heretofore undiscovered in my life, usually attorneys, will retire at some point. I don't feel that I'm going to be forced into that space when it comes to mentorship, even if it's just one high school runner. And as long as I am able, I can't imagine giving up something that just means so much to me and has been so transformative and formative for me personally.
2018, you said you had 2 athletes. 2025, I don't know what you're up to.
A lot.
Some crazy number.
Yeah.
What's the evolution been like? And I'm glad we're doing this podcast when we are, because, I'd be talking to a different version of Jeff back then. Oh. And I'll probably, we'll look back on this 5 years from now and go, whoa, this was the starting point of XYZ that you talked about.
Yeah. I'm a better coach. I always like to joke that my first coaching job, actually back in 2001, was my first coaching job, and I was okay. But if I knew then what I know now, hell, if I knew in 2008, what I know now, I would be a better coach. But I've gotten better and better and better at it in so many respects, because, when you compile this sort of vast array of field data, and let's call it that, because I've told people many times this, I am a JD. I am not a PhD in exercise physiology, right? I am not Joe Vigil, right? I'm not Dr. Jack Daniels. I am a doctor of jurisprudence, which means that I have a license to talk a lot and try to talk people into seeing things the way I see it. So I've done a lot of field research, right? And thank goodness for the internet and for coaching mentors, right? And I don't drop a lot of names, and I don't like to talk about that, but one of the greatest 4 hours of my life in 2009 at the U.S. Championships in Des Moines was sitting next to Joe Vigil in the stands at Drake Stadium, right? And then, when John Hayes was coaching at University of Texas and he's still at Wake Forest, calling Coach Hayes and be like, all right, am I crazy? Call Pat Tyson. He's at Gonzaga, now.
Character.
And be like, Tyson, I'll never forget. I said, Tyson, I want to do frog jumps, and I want to do, hill sprints, and I want to do, all this stuff. And he says, Jeff, he goes, Jeff. I says, yeah, Coach, what's going on? They're in high school. He goes, it's about the running. Make it about the running, man. This was in 2000, fall of 2009, I want to say, when we were up in Portland, And so it's kind of funny. So I've got mentorship that has fed into me, made me better. I try to listen. I try to talk. I try to be to people who are in the know and be adaptive and change maybe the way I see things just a little bit here and there. Not lock, stock, and barrel, dump everything and go over here for the next shiny object, which is, okay, let's consider this. Are we really doing enough pure speed work? Are the lactate threshold sessions long enough? Do we really need that much of this, and what are we lacking? It's sort of funny, Haftu goes and runs 209, And my first thing that I thought when I got on the airplane is I felt like that country dog that chases after a pickup truck. And you always wonder, well, what happens when the dog catches the truck, right? And so I got on the airplane and I left the airport there in central New York. And I thought to myself, oh boy, the imposter syndrome grew, which was, okay, now how do we run 207? How do we run 206? Right? And so yeah, you just continue to grow. And that has been the evolution. The more runners I've coached, the more I've grown. Because you have so many runners with different physiology, so many runners with different stressors. You have some runners who barely work at all. Very few. Almost all of my runners are working 40 hours a week, 50, 60, sometimes 80 hours a week, much to my chagrin. You have some runners who come from a background of collegiate running. You have some runners who didn't run a step until they were in their late 20s. And so you have to look at experience, physiology, bandwidth, injury resistance, and somehow figure out how to make it all work in concert. And when the lights turn on Wednesday mornings, make sure that you're doing the best that you can to be the best of you for them. That's the way I see the world.
That story about your 4 hours with Coach V Hill is cool because I had on Dina, who's his most prominent athlete after his passing.
Yeah.
And she shared a bunch of stories about him. One of those being he would never reject the opportunity to mentor or help a younger coach, which is remarkable to hear you talk about that. For you now, are you paying that forward in terms of, I know you have a lot of people who come to you. Is it cool to now be in a position where I'm sure you still go to those types of people that are still out there, exist, wanting to grow yourself, but now being able to take your knowledge and give it to the next generation, who I'll talk to on a podcast in 20 years and say, oh, Jeff, talk to me.
I people DM me all the time, and I try not to listen, I'm fallible. I mean, my bandwidth is razor thin, but the reality of it is to try to respond. Somebody will text me and say, or DM me and say, okay, am I doing this wrong? Do these paces look appropriate? If my goal is X, here's the last 3-4 weeks of work I've done. Am I even in the ballpark? And I'll try to respond, and I'll say, hey, maybe mix in a little bit of this. Or maybe it's like, this is way better than anything I could have ever dreamt up. May I steal this, right? But, more often than not, it's, hey, maybe try nutrition every X number of miles. Maybe this much volume of critical velocity work or aerobic threshold work. I'm not sure that I would run that race that close to your goal marathon because you're going to spend too much time having to recover from that race. Rather than getting in that last bit of productive training, just stuff like that. And so I try to respond as much as I can when people pull me aside, at an expo or pull me aside at a race. Happens occasionally. I'm neither smart enough nor competent enough for too many people to ask me a lot of that stuff, but they'll pull me aside, and I try to spend time, 5, maybe 10 minutes, whatever it takes to sort of help them with their question. And then I always say, hey, if you need anything, you know where to find me. Follow up, let me know. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, this looks fantastic. I know your race is in 10 weeks. Could you check in with me maybe 2 or 3 times in the next 10 weeks? Only because I'm curious to see how you're doing, and you just grew a fan.
Right.
I want to see you succeed.
Right.
Whatever it is, the Huck Finn, a Littleville 5K or whatever. I'm curious how people are doing,
You've done so many podcasts without Nick throughout the years. Gives more into your backstory, more. So I'll direct people there. But for the sake of the audience and just value packing this with the time we have, I want to ask you a question that's on my mind. What do you feel like is your most unorthodox training theory or method that you think works?
Man, that's a really interesting question, and I hadn't pondered it. From my standpoint, it's doing one workout a week. And I've gotten some pushback over the years, but I coach people who are accountants, who are in tech sales, who are licensed, therapists, who have very busy lives, who have professions. I mean, and when Mitch Ammons is having to go and show homes and deal with home sales and inspections, and I mean, I've seen him crawling, underneath homes in the dirt, to check and see why X, Y, and Z is wrong with this house, why it won't pass inspection. I mean, we don't have people, and I only got a couple, but I don't have people who lay around on a massage table at 2:00 in the afternoon, sipping a latte with, like the cool, heart art, and the foam, like scrolling.
Yeah.
Oh, what are my fans up to? Listen, that's not my reality. I've got folks who show up with wet hair to the office at 8:00 in the morning after doing, 12,000 meters of track repeats, and then they work until 6, 7, sometimes 8 at night. And so one workout a week really seems to work. Even for the most talented runners, a lot of times put a big workout right in the middle of the week and not try to overcook by create too much training density, meaning too many hard workouts too close together. I would rather have one big shot of stimulus rather than start chopping it up into little pieces. And the results have been mostly really good. I measure myself by the results that I get. The unfortunate, and what I believe the uncomfortable reality is, but is it really that uncomfortable? You are measured by who you coach, right? Listen, nobody's going to declare somebody to be the greatest coach in NFL history if they have a career losing record. You are what you coach, and that is what it is. And a long time ago, I had this guy who was the greatest high school runner I ever coached. And we were at the Fighting Troy Relays. Okay? Troy, Texas is just north of Temple, Texas, for those of you who are wondering. And I caught this guy jumping hurdles backwards before the meet. And I looked at him and I said, son, I don't know if this is going to work, I mean, that level of, and I said, listen, here's the reality. When people see you out here doing dumb stuff like that, you have to understand that people are going to say you're either coaching it or you're letting it happen. You are judged by your work product. You're judged by who you coach. What are they doing? What are their actions? And what are the results? And then, so at the end of the day, listen, the reality of it is the results matter. And so I've gotten good results with my methodology thus far, okay? And I've got people who are qualifying for Olympic trials, who are making elite fields in professional fields at large and major marathons, Boston, Chicago, okay, CIM, South American Championships this past weekend. And so that's my work product. And so it's very important to me to make sure that I'm equipping people to be the best that they can be. And yeah, it's a little unorthodox because, a lot of people are like, hey, it's Tempo Tuesday, Threshold Thursday, Fartlek Friday, and Sadistic Saturday, right? I mean, you got these names for the days of the week, and maybe Moonshot Monday. Hell, I don't know, and man, I'm kind of boring. We got Workout Wednesday, and then a lot of easy running with a little bit of baby fartlek, maybe some neuromuscular stimulus work, maybe on a Friday, right? 20-second surges, maybe 10 times 100 meters, but like nothing grandiose and exotic with fancy schmancy names. You got the IT with the PI pace, and then you got to go and do the the whatever. It's like, I don't know. There's about 5 kinds of running. You got jogging and faster jogging and medium pace running and fast running and really, really ripping ass, fast ass running. Figure out how much of it to do, mix it in the pot, stir it up, send it to the finish line, and hope.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Gabby Thomas told me this line when I did a podcast with her. This was before she won Olympic gold, which makes it all the more cool. She said, the most successful athlete is probably the one with the most boring life. And that stuck with me ever since. And it kind of goes to your quote, which is consistently good is better than occasionally great. My question for you, why do you think people assume that every day needs to be flashy to be successful. Do you think they actually believe that, or do you think they're just scared to engage with monotonous work?
Oh, boy. You're asking a lawyer a question, so you're going to get a lawyerly answer. The answer's both. Okay? My almost 21-year-old tells me that I might be the oldest 50-year-old in North America. I mean, you're talking to a guy. Listen, if you handed me a GPS watch right now and told me to figure out how to, like, connect it to, like, this Strava deal or whatever, I don't know how to. Listen, I'm kidding. I can figure it out. I mean, allegedly I was, smart enough to pass the bar exam. I might be able to figure out how to work it. But here's the deal. We are in, and I said this, and I've said this over and over, and I know people hear me say it a lot, but distance running and marathon specifically, like I said, literally just yesterday or the other day on my Instagram, that's a turkey bacon sport, but we live in a microwave dinner world. We have Instagram. It's not slowgram. It's not delayed gratification gram. It's Instagram, right? It is changing our dopamine responses, and it is altering our dopamine receptors. In Texas, okay, just up I-35, Bruce Valetti, we have a drive-through liquor store. We are too lazy in the state of Texas, apparently at this point, to get out of our pickup trucks to go in and get some whiskey, all right? We have drive-through liquor stores. We have rapid tax return. We have Instagram, right? And we eat hungry man microwave dinners instead of boiling the rice, shucking the corn, hand battering the chicken, putting in the oil. Now, that ain't happening anymore. But the problem is human physiology has not changed in thousands of years. There's been 2 discoveries that make us live past the age of 25 or 30 in the last several thousand years. Fire, penicillin, right? But when you look at mitochondria, those were there when Pheidippides ran his first marathon. Type 1 fibers, type 2A, type 2B fibers, that's been part of human physiology since long before the birth of Christ. Instagram wasn't. Instagram wasn't. I was actually talking to one of my athletes over in the UK this morning because, well, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 10 a.m. in the UK, so I found somebody to keep me awake. And I was explaining to her, she's very young, hey man, I had a TRS-80 computer from Radio Shack, and we would download computer programs onto a cassette tape. This was before the invention of the floppy disk, okay? But when you look at the rate of the evolution of technology, the first iPhone came out in 2007. I'll never forget. I was in the lobby of the hotel before the state cross-country meet with my team. I'd never seen an iPhone in my life, and I was like, whoa, right?
What is that?
But, 2007, right? 2007 wasn't very long ago. And so we have to engage in delayed gratification. We have to be patient with the process of building an aerobic engine and understand the physiology of it and stop doing things like trying to get 1% better every day, those types of things. But we're in this glitter glitzy world. And so what we want is we want rainbows and moonbeams shooting out of our butt and our ears and everything. We want glitter flying everywhere. And, it was kind of fascinating because I was talking to somebody else in a podcast last week, and I'll never forget the day at track practice back in, I don't remember how many years ago it was, maybe 10 years ago, and the kids didn't love the workout. My wife is maybe one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around. The woman can coach, man. And so we're sitting there, my wife and I co-coached the team at St. Michael's Catholic here in Austin, and they were whining about the workout. We don't like this workout. This workout isn't fun. I think she had, the sprinters, because we ran the Baylor system there for the 400-meter runners, right? So, I think they had like 12 times a 200. What sprint coach assigns 12 times a 200? Not very many. And so that we don't like the workout. Well, and they're like, it's not fun. My wife looked at everybody. Her name's Angelique. She has a name. Angelique looked at him and she says, fun. She said, fun? She goes, to be honest with you, I'm not real concerned. My workouts are not designed for your enjoyment. You know what fun is? You know what fun is? Fun is prevailing. Fun is winning. Now, we're not going to go second place is the first loser. Listen, we do not believe that. Listen, successes can be had all up and down the line. Even if your kid gets last place at a cross-country meet, if that's the first race they've ever run and they've accomplishment, they're getting a big hug at the finish line. Got to be there, right? But the reality is, she goes, fun? What are we talking about here? Because they wanted glitz, they wanted glamour, they wanted fun. I mean, I guess they wanted cones and TheraBands and parachutes at practice. That didn't happen at our practice. We're running, right? And so the reality is, trying to mix it up and keep it fun and light and enjoyable and having this sort of this mixture. I'm a big monotony guy because being a distance runner and being a marathoner, I mean, monotony is actually kind of part of it, right? I mean, to qualify for the U.S. Olympic trials, if I could script it out for a young lady who's a dreamer, we're going to run 5:59, 5:59, 5:59, 5:59. And I believe that comes out to like 2:36:45, something like that, 2:36:50, right? That's monotonous. But you want to know what? We sleep in rhythm. We talk about biorhythms. We talk about boring, right? Go to sleep every night at the same time. Wake up same time every day. We largely eat the same breakfasts every day. We largely run the same paces, the same routes. We don't run a different route every day. We probably have 2 or 3 routes that we run on average, and we run the same ones thousands and thousands and thousands of times, right? Our hearts beat largely in the same rhythm our entire lives, right? When we are not actually exercising. So I would say 22 and a half hours a day out of every 24, our hearts are all beating on average between 45 and 70 beats a minute on average for 60, 70 years. Everything's monotony. We don't have to have variation. We don't have to have glitz and glamour and glitter just falling from the ceilings to live incredibly fulfilling, happy lives. And in fact, I think it can really short circuit our happiness and cause a whole lot of distractedness, neurologic fatigue. I'm not a neurologist, but if anything else, almost like transient ADD, as opposed to maybe actually having the actual clinical diagnosis. Let's breathe. Let's breathe. The most boring time in anybody's life should be the 14 days before a marathon. I told somebody, hunker down, be boring. If somebody wants to have you go for an extra photo shoot or go and take a trip or whatever, say, hey, after Berlin, after Chicago, boring's okay. Boring's okay.
Yeah, boring produces success. And I think it's the boring things that go unseen that produce the most success.
Yeah.
When you sleep, what you eat, how you take care of your business. And that's what I love about other sports that I think our sport doesn't adopt. So I talked to Josh Kerr, who, if you follow the sport, you'll know that guy.
Sure.
And that is one of like 3 guys in our sport that I'm like, you would make it in the NBA. Everyone else in running, it seems to be, what's the minimal amount I can do to be successful? A guy like Josh, it's like, here's what I want. What's it going to take to get there? And I'm going to do everything possible. Mm-hmm. And so the guy has a burner phone. He has a chef, same meals every time. I mean, it's like, it's scary for me, who would never do that, to see and just be like, wow, this is so impressive. And that's what I think, we don't have Kobe Bryant mindsets in the sport of running. To that point, though, that you were talking about earlier, I think something I'd love to get your thoughts on is an athlete will PR and then they think they need to rewrite the script to go from 10 to 100. They just went from 1 to 10 doing one thing. They think they have to change it up. And my experience following you, knowing your methodologies as well as what I know in terms of training theory, if something worked, you might tinker a few things, but if you're newer to the sport, unless you've been doing it for 30 years, consistency over time is what produces success. And where you get injury or you get random results is, well, we did 10 by K last cycle, so we should do 12 by K, or we should do 2Ks now, or we should, and it's like, Why, if something was successful, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it is one of the mantras that I live by and coach by. Now, you can tweak it, right? But you don't need to go in and do any major overhauls. Assume that for the most part, if you had something that you did that was empirically, verifiably great or good, right, that it didn't happen by accident. Listen, I mean, we've all seen the 60-meter dash indoors where you kind of watch and you think, man, did that guy catch a flyer? But it didn't, none of the alarms went off and the gun didn't get reshot, and the guy had the greatest 60-meter dash of his life. And may have trouble replicating that. Listen, accidents don't happen in distance running. You don't fall into a 2:09 marathon. You don't fall into, a 3:29 1500, right? So you must then assume that something that you did really clicked, right? You're not going to be able to show up on drinking 3 gallons of reindeer milk and a couple of cups of pixie dust and go out and run at 2:09. You either have the aerobic fitness to do it or not. So take a look at what you did and say, okay, this worked. How do I get to 2:08? How do I get to 2:07 by maybe a 2.5-3% increase in total volume over a 24-week period, maybe the following year? Maybe we do a tiny little bit more neuromuscular stimulus work to improve running economy, but you don't abandon the big, bulky, critical velocity sessions that you do where you might run, 15 times 800-meter repeats at 90 to 95% of MVO2 pace on a minute recovery. You don't abandon that stuff because from a physiologic standpoint, and it really helps to understand physiology at least enough to get it done, right? And that's the space I'm in. I've learned it, but you have to understand how malleable, like type 2A fibers work, what intensity of running and what paces for an individual athlete are going to be able to help move those toward operating and functioning more like a type 1 fiber, and you stick with that work, right? Understand, anaerobic / lactate threshold and what doses, and if you dosed it correctly and you had this sort of breakout otherworldly performance from an athlete, say, okay, we're just going to do more of that. And over time, especially if you have a young athlete, somebody in their mid-20s, early 20s, you got somebody in your early 20s, you've got a decade. So just a little bit, keep doing it. You don't need to go and say, okay, in this cycle, we're going to go and run 14 times 200 meter all out sprint stadium stands down at Memorial Stadium at University of Texas, because that is going to make us better at hill running. You're probably just going to end up with your plantar fascia detached from your calcaneus, right?
Yeah.
Don't switch it up. Go back out there on the east side and go and do
what you did, just do it better.
Do your 8 times 2K
at
CV pace and hunker down, baby.
Yeah. What advice would you have for younger athletes, an elite high schooler watching who wants to be great one day?
Do not let the people around you confuse pessimism and realism. We spend so much time telling people, hey, here are your limitations. Here's what you're probably not going to be able to do, that we fail to, 1, get a coherent plan, 2, be willing to push the fences out on the ranch that is that individual athlete's talent. Push the fences all the way out and say, this is where we're going to let the horses run. We're not going to box you in here. There's no crime for dreaming. The criminalization of staring out the window listlessly for elementary school kids is sometimes a bit lamentable, right? You sort of box them in and walking in a straight line. I'm not saying, we need to have anarchy, right? But allow these kids to dream. But it can't just be dreams. You have to have a coherent, scientifically based, evidence-based strategy for coaching these kids up, and you've got to understand the physiology in order to be able to maximize the kid and maximize the kid's talent. I mean, I love watching Lutgenhouse.
I've known him, by the way. I was his first ever podcast episode.
He's hunkered down with his coach up there at Justin Northwest. It's up there north of Fort Worth, in case you guys are wondering where Justin is, okay? And he is dynamite. He's dynamite, and I don't know Coach. I don't know him. I've just seen the stuff in the media like everybody else has, right? I've been out of the high school coaching business long enough. But I'm sitting here and I'm watching this. I'm like, this is a great synergy, and this is a great connection between these two. And he has it together. He's a great coach, and I'm really interested not to see what Cooper does alone, but I'm interested in that program. I'm actually interested in that program because Cooper is a transcendent talent. I think everybody in the running world, not just even in the United States, I think worldwide at this point is going, whoa, who's this 16-year-old? But you look at the mentorship and make sure that you're providing quality mentorship that's evidence-based, that is scientifically based, but lead with passion. Kids want passion. They also want structure. Kids want discipline, but they also want to be believed in. They want an adult to look them straight in the eye, and they want to be told, you can. But not just you can, here's how. And then show them how, coach them how, and then they might actually prove to themselves how. And that's what I did at the high school level. I appreciate this question. In 2006, I coached my first high school cross country season on team formerly as a high school coach. And these guys were out there in training flats. They were out there in mismatched socks, mismatched shoes, and they were staring at the boys from the Woodlands High School at a meet. And they go, whoa. I said, stop with the whoa. I said, let me ask you something. I said, is there something in the municipal water supply in the Woodlands, Texas, or South Lake, Texas, right? Or Flower Mountain, Texas, that magically makes guys run 15, 30, 5Ks across country? Well, I don't know, guess not. I'm like, let me ask you this. Do they got 2 legs and 2 arms and 2 eyes? And yeah, coach, yeah. I'm like, do you think they have an extra lung? I mean, is there something maybe, in the hospitals north of Houston where kids who run for the Woodlands High School are born with an extra lung? No. I said, well, then what's stopping you? Well, I said, don't well me. This is what we're going to do. And so it was just the greatest feeling, 3 years later, when we were one of 3 high schools in the state of Texas, right, that qualified for the high school Nike national championships in the 4x1 mile relay. And they go, oh, we get it now. I'm like, yeah, you go and you train your ass off. And for every coach that says, we just going to worry about what we're doing over here, if we just take care of ourselves, we're going to be fine. No, you better have your periscope up. If your team stinks and another team doesn't stink, I don't know, raise the periscope up, get it above water level, look around. You might find out that they're doing something that you can take. So you gobble up the information, you frame it in a way that makes sense, you organize it in a way, you apply it in a way that makes sense for your personnel, and just go get it done. And, make sure that you get to have that hold my beer and watch this moment. It feels good. Feels real good, man.
For you and all the moments, all the athletes,
Yeah.
the high schoolers, the Nick Bears, the Bat City, the
Yeah.
Mitches, what's been the most gratifying part of it all for you?
People who were previously maybe not that great, or people who had naysayers who says you can't do that. People who might, on paper, none of these people have proven to actually be ordinary human beings. But on paper, maybe their marks looked, pretty ordinary. I mean, Mitch Ammons was I think a 236 when he showed up. Now he's a 216. Nick Bear was a 324, right? Now he's a 239. Lindsey Bradley was out of the sport. She was told, you are never going to run again. Go knit potholders. She called me up and she just said, one last shot before I never, ever run again. This is 2017. Now she's 231, right? So taking people who may seemingly have ordinary talent, taking people who may seemingly have an ordinary life's resume, and having them come to me and say, here's my resume. Can we add a couple of really, really cool bullet points, highlights, maybe blow it up into some 24-point font, and let's put that at the top of my resume when the story is written about my career or any endeavor that I'm passionate about, and then helping them build that resume in a way that's so eternally fulfilling for them. Listen, I got a wife, I got a daughter, I got a lot of love in my life, and I love it. I mean, I love it when people are thankful and all that, but it's about them. It's about making sure that they walk away going, I'm better having done this, and golly, what a ride, right?
Tomorrow, premiere of Last Man Standing. You were there. How excited are you to watch this piece, and how crazy was it at the ranch in May?
Listen, man, I've coached the standard distances, everything from 800 meters to the marathon, and even the standard, forgive the air quotes, ultra distances, Leadville, right? 100 miles, legendary stayed, traditional 100-mile ultra. You get in this Last Man Standing thing, boy, I tell you what,
Another world.
If I was a fish, I was out of the water. I mean, listen, comparing Last Man Standing and comparing, like when Sally goes and runs these 250-mile races, right? Shout out to Sally. I mean, that's not comparing a tiger and a house cat to running a 10K or a marathon. I mean, they're both in the cat family, but we're not talking about the same animal. Last Man Standing was a fascinating display of toughness, rigor, the ebbs and flows, both of physical, being in the doldrums and then coming out of it, the emotional doldrums and coming out of it, and sort of this triumph of the human spirit that you think you triumphed and then you're doomed and then you triumph again. And it was wild when you start losing track of time in your days, in your nights. I'm so excited to watch the film because I think I remember what it was like. It was kind of an altered, almost surreal experience where I'm looking forward to going back and watching the film and going, oh, I remember that. Oh my gosh, I don't even remember saying that, or I don't remember that happening. And then watching all these people who were trying to win, but I was just talking to Kendall, and I was just talking to Mitch, and I was just talking to Kim, and Lucy. I mean, literally just a few minutes ago out here, they're all friends. I mean, listen, they were trying to beat their brains, each other's brains in out there, and I think they're going to try to beat each other's brains in again. But the collaborative spirit between 4.2 mile sections, where they're like, "Hey, come on, man, it's going to get better. You're going to be okay. Hey, are you okay? Hey, are you sick? Are you feeling okay?" It's the collaboration and the collegiality in that space that's really heartening for me, because we're dealing with nice people. And given some of the national rhetoric, given some of the international rhetoric, and given some of the temperature of things, I like nice people. And it just felt so good to be out there with people who were just kind and just absolutely doggedly, ruggedly tough at the same time, and not confusing the ability to be able to be both at the same time, right?
Totally.
That's what I got out of it, and it was amazing. And also, seeing the number of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and in cold cans of Campbell's soup that get sucked down, and then a guy gets up and goes and runs 4 miles. I was just kind of like sometimes like, this is kind of crazy, you know? Like Sally once said, it's an eating contest where you mix some running in. I mean, that's kind of what you're doing here, right?
So that's a great way of framing it.
Love
great
it.
Way of framing it.
Yeah.
We're almost at time here, so 2 more serious questions for you. First one, I talked to Mitch extensively about, community, what that means, and then kind of in relation to Austin being a special place.
Yeah.
You can correct me. I'm just being honest. In my outsider's perspective, you do seem kind of like the godfather of running in this city, where when you look at a city, you look at who are the fastest people, who are they trained by, who are they coached by, who's had the impact, and you look at the impact you've had in Nick's life and the people in DPN's organization. You've done so much. How much pride do you take in the fact that you run Bat City, the effects of, I can't pass a decently accomplished runner in Austin without hearing about how you impacted their life in some way. How cool is that to you when you sit back and you take a moment to reflect on that legacy you've left in this city?
It's really cool that I'm sitting here with you and that's your perspective, because I think that that's what we should want. And I always say the ultimate disservice we do to ourselves is when we lie to ourselves and we say that what people think about us does not matter. I will repeat that. Do not fall prey to the cliche, I don't care what other people think about me. Well, you should, because the ultimate in that is just pure sociopathy, okay? It matters a lot to me that people think of it that way. I am simply a tiny cog in a really, really rich history that is the Austin running community, going way, way back to the 1960s. I mean, Stan Huntsman was one of the great coaches in University of Texas history. His runners are still in the Austin community right now. Some of them are coaching. A couple of them are my friends. And Stan recruited me. He was the head coach at University of Texas. And then you look at what Paul Carrozza did, right, with RunTex. You look at Gilbert Tuhobonye. There is not a better human in the running world in the United States than Gilbert Tuhobonye. I mean, Run for the Water, you look at what he's doing there, right? That's real stuff. You're building wells and you are bringing water to impoverished parts of his home country of Burundi. I mean, we've got all these amazing characters who are part of the tapestry of Austin running. Am I proud to coach Bat City Track Club? Am I proud to have built something where I think there was a lot of people that said, listen, you cannot run fast marathons south of the Mason-Dixon line. We must be in Boulder. We must be in Flagstaff in order to be able to do it. And the fact that we have multiple runners in the U.S. Olympic Trials Marathon in 2024. We're going to have even more than that, okay? And trying to progress toward having people getting into the conversation of making a U.S. Olympic team. We're making that kind of progress. I take immense pride in that. But I am not the godfather of Austin running. I am merely a cog in this beautiful machine and part of the tapestry that is Austin running.
I love it. Final serious question for you.
Yeah.
Final takeaway message. 60 seconds or less, can be anything.
Okay.
What do you want the listener thinking as they close out this episode back into their everyday life training?
Do not believe that the glass ceiling is hovering anywhere near the top of your head. Your glass ceiling, and no matter what it is you do, whether it's music, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's running, is way higher than what you might believe. Invest in yourself. Choose you. Nobody else will choose you. Life will not choose you. Okay? You choose you, and you make it happen, and understand that your talent glass ceiling is way up here. Everybody's got one. I ain't ever gonna dunk a basketball, right? But everybody's got a glass ceiling, okay? It's higher than you believe. And then just grab onto the gifts that you've been bestowed with, and if you're passionate about it, get yourself all the way to those heights. And nothing in life, and this is what my sweet wife says, Angelique always says, there's nothing in life that's worse than regrets. Don't look back in 20 or 30 years and say, I had the opportunity to jump on the fast-moving train, and I chose to stand on the side of the tracks and watch it whisk by. Don't do it. You got one chance on this hunk of rock called Earth. Let's make it count.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Jeff Cunningham. Jeff, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your impact. I appreciate it all.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me on. And what you're doing in the running world and the running community is masterful, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thank you.